everybody, and welcome back to Throttle Grotto. This week on the ADD Garage, we're working on the Nissan. Stay. Alright everybody, welcome back. So this week, I know you're probably expecting me to work on the Rabbit, and I would like to. One thing that's holding me back is I need to sit down and figure out exactly what I need to order to get the boost tubing dialed in on the Rabbit. So I'm kind of in a holding pattern on that because I have ADD and I have all these things going on. I have the seat material coming back for the Boxster in probably a week or so. So I'll be putting the seats back together for the Boxster, and I got a whole episode on that. Some really old footage of when I took them apart, and then fixing the broken pieces on the seat I'm going to do before I put the new fabric on. And I think you guys are really going to like that. But what I'm really excited about this week is I got new suspension for the Rallycross car. Alright, I figured this is going to be easier with two hands. I don't know why. I don't know why. The Nissan came, when I bought it, it had Progress lowering springs that somebody had cut, and KYB GR2s. Not great suspension. I put like stock springs back on it to get it up in the air so that I actually drive it around, because it had like a ½ inch of suspension travel. So, perusing my local Facebook marketplace, you're not going to believe it, but let me show you what I came up with. That's right, these are BC Racing coilovers, top adjust with camber plates. This is a really nice setup, and it came off of a Nissan Sunny. For those of you that don't know, so the JDM Sunny is all-wheel drive, based on the B13 platform, has turbocharged SR20 and the same independent rear suspension that the NX has. So this suspension will work on the Sentra SER, the B13 version, or the NX2000. And I got it for a song on Craigslist because a guy had it on a parts car that he bought from Japan. So I got this suspension for a steal. It was so cheap I couldn't pass it up. But I need to go through and see if the coilover sleeves move, and I kind of want to baseline everything. Some of them seem like they're set to different heights. So I just want to go through and free everything up and make sure that all the sleeves turn like they're supposed to. So I'm probably going to have to do a bunch of stuff with penetrating fluid to get everything to loosen up, because I don't know how long they've been on that car. But they felt good doing the push test in the garage, which really means nothing. But if I get a couple of seasons out of them, just doing Rallycross, well worth it. Because I've had a really hard time finding good suspension to put on this car. So, yes, I'm super excited. I have no idea how they're going to ride at the height that I want to set the car at. But they've got to be better than what's on it. Stock springs with some questionable repute struts. So let's get to freeing these things up. Alright, so that actually went fairly well. So for those of you that don't understand how coilovers work, it's basically a spring and a shock all together. You got your spring here. Sometimes you'll have a helper spring that sits down lower on the shock. And then you have these collars that are adjusted with these sometimes very frustrating wrenches. Sometimes they really grab well and sometimes they don't. So if these threads get bound up, it makes it really tough to set your ride height. And then, so you have the locking collar, which is here, and you have the spring perch collar, which is here. So you can turn the spring up and down on the shock to set the ride height of the car. Now, these also have a threaded collar that goes down into the body, and you can actually adjust the height of the shock in the collar too, which is really nice about these. So it will give me the opportunity that I can set the collars up. I think I'm going to have to break this one loose once it's in the car, because there's just not enough leverage here to hold it in place and undo this collar. But then I can set the whole shock up higher in the perch. I don't want to go too high because it's obviously like the higher you go in the perch, the less strength you have. But in order to get the ride height at least to the height I have now, and then I can take advantage of the stiffer springs that are on the coilovers, this is going to be a really nice setup. So I am going to loosen up the collar, or at least try to loosen up the collars on the rest of these, and get them all soaked in penetrating oil, and maybe even I'll go put them on the car today. Well, good news is all of the spring, the lock rings have freed up, and the spring perches all seem to be moving just fine. So the only one I have a little bit of concern about is this lower lock ring that adjusts the height of the whole strut assembly in the knuckle. But I'm hoping that once I have it on the car, it's going to be a lot easier to adjust, because I'll have the actual vehicle to hold the lower part of this in place while I turn the collar here. So then it's just a matter of locking these two together and using this assembly to turn the whole strut assembly up or down in the perch. So first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to go measure the height of the spring where the car is sitting right now on the ground, so I have a reference to how high, the minimum height that I want to set this at once I get these coilovers on. Alright, so I'm just going to use a tape measure and go from the floor to the fender lip. And on here, it's about 26 and a half. It's about 26 and a half in the front. And 26 in the rear. So it's actually pretty level all the way around, which is kind of surprising. So if I get the rear and the front about the same height, I think we'll be pretty good, because I know that these springs are going to be a lot stiffer than what's currently on here. Alright, so I got everything back on, and I measured, I have my tape measure here somewhere. So I measured the fender to ground right now is 25. So I'd like to bring this up probably another inch. If I can get to 26 on here, I think I'm going to be pretty happy, because the springs are going to be a lot stiffer, so this thing's not going to dip into the ground nearly as much as it did before. Just doing the fender test, like pushing on the fender, there's already much stiffer. This is going to be a much stiffer setup. So that's going to really translate, hopefully, into faster times on the course, and keeping the bottom of the car out of the dirt. So I'll pull the wheel back off, run these coils up a little bit more, and then I'll measure it again. Alright, so the fronts are done, and I've got them set to 25 and a half fender to ground, which is just ½ inch lower, but I think that's going to work really well for this car. I don't want to go too much higher than that, because I'll be getting way into the extremes of the shock. So I think I'm going to take a break for dinner, and then I'm going to come out and I'm going to do at least this side tonight. Maybe I'll get all 4 done. They go pretty quick, so it takes longer to actually adjust the length of the shock than it does to actually put them on. It's only 5 bolts and a spring clip that holds these onto the car, so it goes pretty quick. But I think it's time for a dinner break. Well, the fact that I'm wearing a different sweatshirt should clue you into the fact that I did not finish this last night. So I'm going to throw the wheels on. I've got all of the adjusters in the back loosened up. Everything moves, and I've tried to measure it out as close as I can see Like, I think I've got it pretty close to 26 inches fender to ground, but I won't know until I get it on the ground. So I'm gonna throw the wheels back on, and then we'll see where it ends up. Okay, so after all that, I ended up at just under 25, like 24 3/4 ground to fender. So I'm going to put it back up in the air and adjust that. I'll throw the driver's side shock in and level everything out, and that'll be done. The only thing that I'm going to have to do is I'm going to have to make some sway bar end links, because the end links that are on there right now don't reach. And I called BC, and they're like, "We don't have anything that, we don't have a kit for that." So I'll have to make something. But other than that, the coilovers are on. The car is a lot stiffer right now than it was. And I know the push test isn't really a great test of suspension. But I can tell you that is significantly stiffer all the way around. So far I'm happy with it. I'm gonna have to drive it on some gravel roads and see how it plays out. But it's a great upgrade for the Nissan, and I'm really glad I found it. So I'm gonna finish up this job without you guys so that I can turn on some music, because I can't have music in the background while doing YouTube. So until next time, thank you guys for watching. Get out there and work on something.